Kimberly Fletcher is the president and founder of Moms for America, a national movement of mothers to reclaim our culture for truth, family, freedom, and Constitution. The threefold mission is to empower moms, promote liberty, and raise a new generation of patriots. Moms for America has been recognized as the fastest growing movement of women in America, giving voice and value to the silent majority of women in America who love God, respect life, revere family, and cherish freedom. Kimberly is also an author and columnist. She is the wife of a retired officer in the U.S. Air Force and mother of 8 children. Kimberly has appeared on numerous national media outlets, including Fox News, Sinclair Broadcasting, and Breitbart. She is the author of Women, America's Last Best Hope, and a contributing writer for townhall.com. A truly amazing woman. Please enjoy this presentation by Kimberly Fletcher.
Hi, everybody. I'm so sorry I can't be there with you in person, but I am really grateful to Ronnie for allowing me to at least be there virtually. And just know that there is no place I'd rather be than with you guys right now, because this is such an important event, and gathering families and moms together to talk about where our country is and where it's going and how we can protect our children is a really important conversation that we're having. So I'm grateful that I'm able to be a part of it virtually, if not in person. I just want to start out by telling you a little bit about who I am. My name is Kimberly Fletcher, of course. I'm the president and founder of Moms for America. I am the mother of 8 children, and we now have 5 grandchildren. I am an Air Force wife. My husband retired from the Air Force in 2016. And the life that we led through the Air Force really led me on the path of where I am. I think we all come to a point in our lives where we realize that things aren't the way they're supposed to be, and they need to change, but we don't know how to do that. And for me, change is just going back to the good, the true, and the beautiful of what America was about, and being able to raise our children in an environment and culture that was supportive to families. And there was a time when everything in society supported us, from the media to entertainment industry, churches, everything, even schools. Everything was about supporting those foundational principles that we were teaching in our homes. It was kind of just like going with the grain. But today, we're like going completely against the grain. And everything that used to support us is now seemingly going against us. And it's really hard for moms in today's world to kind of get a grasp of, first of all, what's going on. I mean, the first thing we need to do is help parents understand what is going on, what our children are being taught, and the influences that are pummeling them every day. Because once moms find out what those things are, it's like deer in headlights. Oh my gosh, what do we do? And that's the point in time where we either find some way to get empowered or throw our hands up in the air, hide our head under the pillow, and say, how can I get up and face another day? And I think a lot of us are at that place right now. But I want to just share a little bit about my own personal experience of late to help give us a little perspective on where we're at and where we, especially as moms, have the power to take this country. So for those of you who don't know, the reason I'm not able to be with you is because I was in a very serious ATV accident 2 weeks ago. And over the course of the last 2 weeks, I have had surgeries, I have been in and out of the hospital, and I have these lovely scars all over my body now, pretty bruised and banged up. But I'm doing really well right now. But I wasn't. Right after the accident, the night that I was admitted into the hospital, I was in a lot of pain. My shoulder, my collarbone had been shattered. I had hematoma. I had fractured ribs. I was just a mess. And I remember just sitting there in the hospital, just beating myself up. And I kept thinking, why? Why did I just not get on the ATV? And I was thinking of all the people that were relying on me, counting on me for Moms for America, for this speaking at this event, for many projects that we're working on. And I'm the spokesperson for our organization. And as I'm dwelling on all of this, I have all the faces of all the people that are counting on me coming before my eyes. And I'm thinking, if I was them, I'd be like going, what was she thinking? How irresponsible. So that whole entire night, I mean, I couldn't sleep sleep. I was under enormous stress and pain. I felt vulnerable because I couldn't have my husband with me because of COVID. And I'm sure there were other times where I might have felt that out of control in my life, but right at that moment, I mean, looking back, I really can't think of a time when I felt more vulnerable, more scared, more angry at myself, and I just really was at the depths of despair. And at that moment, I remembered calling out to God, and I just said, please, just help me get through this night and help me figure out how I go forward. So the next day, I had my surgery, and following my surgery, my husband called me. Again, he's not allowed to be in the hospital. I was in the hospital alone for 3 days. No support system, which is really awful. But so he called me and reminded me that I'm never alone and miracles still exist. That's something I believed in, but I had my own. My husband told me that my oldest son had the GoPro going when I was driving the ATV, I guess, because, mom's cool, she's driving an ATV. And so they got the whole entire accident on camera. And my husband said, when he watched it, he said, it was unbelievable. He said, Kimberly, it was literally like the hand of God just came down and lifted that ATV over you. It could have been so much worse. If that ATV had landed on me, I probably wouldn't be here. I may be paralyzed. As it was, I got pretty banged up, but wow, it could have been so much worse. And from the moment he told me that, literally, the ATV bucked me off, threw me on the ground, and then flipped over top of me and landed on its wheels on the other side. That just doesn't happen. I mean, everybody I talk to, all the doctors, everybody in Idaho seems to have an ATV, so they have their ATV stories. They all said, I was lucky to be alive. And from that moment forward, instead of me focusing on all the things wrong and what I should have done, what I could have done, I just was incredibly humble and grateful that the Lord would have protected me in that way. And as I was preparing for my presentation today, that thought just kept coming back to me, that we as moms feel so overwhelmed and frustrated and even angry about what's going on. And we have no idea what to do about it. But God is in charge, and he's still there. And as long as we put him first in our lives, he will fight those battles for us. And we can stand there right with him, and he'll guide us in where we need to go and what we need to do. And today I want to give you some ideas of what we can do and how we literally, as Gandhi said, can be the change that we want to see in the world. I want to tell you a couple of stories of some things that I have witnessed in the last couple of years of where our education system is going and what our children are being exposed to. You'll hear a lot of speakers over the course of the next 2 days as we talk about these things, but I just want to give you a couple of my own examples. Those of us who are on the front lines and know what's going on tend to be that source that people come to for support, and I am willing to give it in any opportunity I have. A couple years ago, one of the moms from our church came to my door, distraught, crying. She had just had a horrible experience and she was looking for help. Her daughter was in 5th grade, barely 10 years old, and the teacher at the beginning of the year had sent out an email to all the parents, letting them know that the children in her classroom were at a higher reading level. And because the school library didn't have higher reading level material to meet the needs of her students and their children, that she was going to create a classroom library with that higher reading level material. So this little 5th grade girl came home one day completely upset. Luckily, her mom had had multiple conversations with her saying, listen, honey, if there's anything that ever makes you feel uncomfortable or even violated in any way, come and talk to me and we'll work through it. So after dinner, they went and found a quiet place in the house. And her little girl told her about a book that she had pulled off the classroom library and how it had incredibly disturbed her. So her mom looked up the book and read the passages that the daughter was talking about. And it was a lot of adult kissing and petting, and she was mortified. She couldn't believe that that was in the classroom. So she scheduled a meeting with the teacher and went and talked to her about it. Initially, the teacher was like, oh, but your daughter's so smart. She's a higher reading level. And she tried to dismiss it. And the mom just kept pushing and saying, no, this isn't okay. Now, the thing is, this mom was a teacher and she left teaching to be a full-time mom. And so she told the teacher, I came to you first out of respect to let you know that, this is not appropriate. But obviously, I'm not getting anywhere. So I'm just going to have to take it to the principal. At this point in time, the teacher rolled back and said, oh, no, I'll take care of it. I'll send out an email to the parents. And so she did. She sent out an email to the parents, and it basically said, some parents have expressed concern with the books in our higher reading level material in our classroom library. So going forward, if your child would like to check a book out of our classroom library, you'll just need to sign a release saying that that's okay. Now, what that makes it sound like is there's a bunch of helicopter parents going around saying, I don't want my child reading Black Beauty or whatever. And you're just like, what? So, of course, the parents are just going, whatever, and signing it off and saying they can read it. What she did not say was that the parent in question was concerned about the book because it was loaded with sexual content that was completely inappropriate for 10-year-olds. So my friend thought, she'd done her due diligence. At least her daughter wouldn't be exposed to these books. Well, a few weeks later, her daughter came home literally in tears. She was so upset. And she went to her mom and she said, Mom, I had a really bad day. And she said, what happened? And she said, well, what do you call it when a man makes a girl do something about sex? And she said, what do you mean? And she said, it's a word and I can't remember the word. And what she was trying to describe was rape. And her mother was like, what? And it turned out that one of the boys in the classroom pulled another one of the books off the classroom library, higher reading level, and started reading it out loud to some of the kids in the back of the classroom. And they were all laughing about it. What he was reading was an excerpt of a book of a man trying to rape a 12-year-old girl. What in the heck do our kids need to have that information for? This little girl was absolutely traumatized, and the mom was obviously upset. So after already talking to the teacher and not getting anywhere, and then this happened, she came to my door crying, what do I do? And I said, I'll tell you exactly what you need to do. You need to go to the next school board meeting. You need to take that book with you. You need to open up that passage and you need to read it in front of them. And you need to let them know that's the book in the children's classroom. And she did just that. And the school board was mortified, thank goodness. So they said no more classroom libraries. The books have to be approved, and they're approved to go into the school library through a specific process to ensure that the content is appropriate for elementary age children. This was just one mom who took a stand and said, this is not okay. In 2016, when Black Lives Matter first came on the scene, there was a lot of talk about race relations and how we can get along. And I really wanted to have a better understanding of what this was all about. And there was a program that I found out about that our public school system was promoting and even paying teachers to be able to go. It's a program created by Minnesota Humanities, and it's something that they do around the country. And when I found out about it, I thought this is a great opportunity for me to go and find out, more about what it is that they're teaching our kids about in the classroom about these complicated issues. So I just showed up that day and I hadn't registered. I went straight back to the woman who looked like she was in charge and I said, listen, I'm a homeschool mom. I didn't find out about this in time. Is it okay if I sit in? And she said, oh, of course, because you know what? You need to know these things too. And I said, great. So I sat there through a whole entire day of a professor from University of Nebraska, Omaha, teaching racism. I was absolutely floored. He was talking about white privilege and black kids trying to be white. And I mean, the whole entire thing, I was just like, what? Why wouldn't we be teaching our kids how to get along and the beauty of who we are and that we're one human race coming together? And that's not what was being taught. And I was so frustrated that at the lunch break, I went up to the professor who teaches Black Studies at University of Nebraska, Omaha, and I asked him, what about common ground? And he said, what common ground? And I'm like, right and wrong, common decency. And he said, there is no common ground. There is no common ground. And after listening to what they were saying throughout the day. And boy, I could go on about that. Finally, I went up to him at the end of the day and I said, let me ask you this. If every single white person in the country just happened to get inflicted with a disease that only infected white people, and every white person on the planet suddenly killed over dead, would racism then be over? And he said, no, it will never be over, because black and brown people will always compete for who's more white. What? This is what they're teaching in the classrooms. This was a setting where this professor was teaching teachers basically how to teach and promote racism in the classroom. And now we have the 1619 Project, which goes even further, completely disparaging the discovery of Columbus, the Pilgrims, the Founding Fathers, and everything that American story is about. There was a point in time during that training day where I was being introduced to some of the teachers who were attending, and the woman in charge was so excited. She brought me over to these two teachers, and she said, oh, you have to meet these two. They're just amazing. They have created this curriculum that everybody just loves. They're promoting it all across the school district in fourth grade classes. And I said, wow, that sounds great. What's the curriculum? And she said, well, it's called Putting Christopher Columbus on Trial. And I said, on trial for what? Well, did he discover America, or did he just enslave an indigenous people? What? This is what we're teaching kids in the classroom? These are just two experiences that I had that helped me realize that what's going on in the classroom is monstrously different from when I was in school. And even when I was in school, I wasn't given a full civics education or even a robust history or heritage education. I also remember the sex education classes that started when I was in middle school in the 70s, and how absolutely mortified I was by being in those classes. And the boys are laughing and making fun of the whole thing. And there's a movie that they showed about, you got the VD blues. I still remember that. And I'm like, what is this? And why do I have to do this? So I went home and I told my mom about the class. And I said, I don't want to be there. I feel very uncomfortable. Everybody makes fun of it. I don't want to be there. And so my mom said, no, I don't want you to be there either. So she pulled me out. You know, all the kids are razzing me. Oh, she doesn't want to be there. I didn't care. I sat in the office for that whole entire classroom. But today, in many cases, children aren't able to opt out. And parents aren't even aware of what's going on or what's being taught. And that's one of the first things we need to do. We need to be at the crossroads of our children's lives. When they come home from school, asking them how they're doing. What did they talk about? Look at their school books. Visit their classroom. There's this idea that there's this big iron gate in front of the schools. And we're granted the opportunity to send our children into those iron gates at the beginning of the day. And then we're to collect them at the end of the day. But we're not allowed to know what's going on inside those walls. We can't ask any questions. That is so not true. We as parents, and even if you don't have children in the school, you have a right as a citizen of the community who's funding those schools to go in and monitor a classroom, to check the books in the library, to ask questions about the curriculum. There are children. We have a right to do that. Do it respectfully. You go into the office, you sign the book and say, I'm just going to come monitor this classroom today, and you have every right to do so. They'll try and stop you. They'll tell you, they don't want you to disrupt the teacher or whatever, but you just do it respectfully because it's absolutely your right. Wear the visitor badge, and you can even ask them, hey, have someone from the office come and accompany me, but I'm going to go and sit in that classroom. And it just seems like more and more the school system is trying to separate us from our children. So we need to know what our rights are, and we need to know how to exercise them. Second thing, know what your options are. And with everything going on right now with the COVID guidelines from the CDC, and why in the heck has the CDC become the be-all end-all for decisions in our country and our culture today, and for our children, how they're going to be educated? There are so many things going on that you guys may not even know about. If you are a mom and you're going into labor, they're going to rapid test you. You're going to have to wear a mask through labor. You might, if you're lucky, get to have your husband in with you. When your baby's born, they're going to rapid test that baby. This is just kind of the ridiculous things that the CDC is promoting. So if they can do it on that level, imagine what they can do when they're the ones controlling the schools. When you've got the teachers' unions and the CDC lining up against teachers and parents. It's our children who are suffering the most and the parents who are the least involved. Can you imagine your kindergartner, first, second, third grader going to school, sitting every other seat, every other row, going to school every other day with a teacher who treats you like a walking contagion? That's not only a bad environment for learning, it creates an enormous amount of undue anxiety, separation, and isolation for our children. And you have the power to do something about it. You have a couple of options. You can go to the school board meetings and express your concern, write letters to your school board representatives, write letters to the principal. Be heard. Your voice needs to be heard at least as much as the CDC and all those people trying to convince these principals and administrators that to protect everyone from the pandemic, we have to do these things. Many places have discontinued band. Sports programs have been put on hold. These are the kinds of things that give our children something to hold on to and build from and express themselves. Those things are taken away. What are they going to fill their time with? So go and have your voice heard. Another option, and it's a really good one, is homeschooling. You absolutely have the right and the ability to teach your children at home. And there are so many resources out there to help and support you. And you can do it in your own individual way for each one of your individual children and what fits best into your own family. So let's go over our list again. First thing is we need to educate and inform ourselves. Secondly, we need to respectfully express ourselves and our concerns. Third, we need to recognize what our options are. And fourth, one of the most important things that we can do right now is vote. I know we're not talking a lot about that, but ladies, do you know that the vast majority of conservative women of faith in this country aren't voting? Most of us aren't even registered to vote. Do you realize that's why we keep losing the culture? Why we keep losing the conversation? Because our voice isn't being heard. We think our husbands are voting, so we've got the family taken care of. But here's the problem. You've got one person going to the polls to represent your family and your values. There's a minimum of 2 people going to the polls every election to vote against those values and everything you hold dear. How's that working for us? It's not. And then we think, well, I don't do politics. Well, let me tell you, ladies, politics are doing you. And you're seeing it right now. Everything that's happening in our country, our culture, our schools, it's because our voice is not being heard. Voting isn't politics. Politics is what happens when we don't vote. There's a difference between civic responsibility and politics. I mean, I don't want to do politics either. What it's become from Kavanaugh hearing to what we see going on today, it looks like a bunch of kids fighting in a sandbox. We spend all day long teaching our children not to behave that way. Why would we voluntarily engage in it? But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about civic responsibility. That duty which every American has as a citizen of this country to respect the law, preserve the U.S. Constitution, be involved in our communities, safeguard the Republic, watch over our government, and seek out and elect good leaders to represent us. Politics is the result of what happens when not enough of us fulfill that duty. It's our duty as mothers, as women of faith, to make sure that our voice is heard and our values are represented. And that's the whole reason Moms for America created Mom Vote. It is your resource for everything you need to know, from where to register to vote, where you go and vote, what all the changes are going to be with COVID, and who the candidates are on your ballot, so you can vote your values with confidence at all levels of government. And please understand, I know we're looked to Washington and the president and Congress, but you know what? They're supposed to be the furthest removed from our lives. And the more we look to Washington to fix our problems, the bigger Washington gets and the more problems are created. The Constitution was a beautiful document set up so that all government was local. We don't get in a car, a plane, a train, and drive or fly to Washington, D.C. to vote for anything. We do it in our own backyard. And the most powerful elected office in the country is not the President of the United States. It's the school board. And we need to start paying attention to it because that's where these things begin and end. And we need to know how to interact with our school board because there's a lot of crazy things going on. I remember a few years ago, I went to an Omaha public school meeting where they were talking about introducing comprehensive sex education. And the parents got up one after another, said, no, we're not supportive of this, and we don't want Planned Parenthood curriculum. And they're like, oh, you just don't understand. 1,800 parents showed up to a school board meeting to protest comprehensive sex education. They had to move them into the auditorium because they couldn't fit them in. And finally, at 10 o'clock at night, they said, you know what? We're just going to end this. No more speakers. And then the chairman of the school board said, I just want to remind everybody that this isn't a public meeting. This is a private meeting that we allow the public to watch and participate in. I was like, what? When you have that many parents show up, it's like, whoa, what's going on? Here's the problem, though. What we don't realize is that by the time we have our deer in headlights moment and we realize that something like comprehensive sex education is coming down the pike, we show up at the school board meetings and we're like, you're crazy. What are you doing? This is nuts. Because of course it is. The problem is for 3, 4, 6 months prior to that, Planned Parenthood, ACLU, and all these other organizations are coming in with their nice suits and their impressive titles and business cards and flowery language talking about how this is so wonderful and tying it into the money the school district's going to get if they do it. So by the time we show up, the decision's pretty much already made. And if we show up angry and frustrated, yelling and crying, then we're not going to be heard. They'll completely dismiss us. So we need to know how to interact with the school board. Whether your children are attending public, private, or homeschooling, you still need to be a part of those school board meetings because they're making decisions on your child's education no matter where they go to school. And you don't have to go to every school board meeting. That's the beauty of uniting together in your local community with other moms. The school board only meets once or twice a month. If you get 9 or 10 moms together, then you're only having to go to 1 or 2 school board meetings a year, and then you just come back and report to the others. But here's the thing. If these school board members start to see you coming to these meetings, they're going to realize that you have a vested interest. And instead of them dismissing you when you show up at the last minute upset and angry, they'll start coming to you and asking what you think about it, while they're still formulating the decision in their mind. Cultivate a positive relationship with these board members. It will go a long way if you do. So I just want to leave you with one final anecdotal story. A few years ago, right after moving to Nebraska, there was a bill that was being put forth to make homeschooling in Nebraska even more draconian than it already was. I mean, when I first moved here, you had to sign like 5, 6 different pages, both you and your husband. They had to be notarized. You turned it into the state. I mean, it was just crazy. And it's gotten a lot better. And the reason why is because when they put this bill forth that was going to require even more measures for homeschoolers, one of the homeschool moms caught wind of it and sent it out to everybody else. And we pulled in HSLDA, Homeschool Legal Defense Association, and asked them to help us create a legal brief contrary to the bill. And then HSLDA tracked the bill to see what the progress was. So by the time it went to hit committee, HSLDA let the state homeschool group know, who then sent it out to every homeschool group in the state. And with just a couple of clicks on the computer, hundreds of homeschoolers were alerted to this committee hearing almost overnight. And we encouraged each other to come and show up. If you can speak, great. But if not, just come and be there. So the day of the committee hearing, I'm in there and I'm sitting in the second row close to the front. And all of these moms just start massing into the room. And it was jam-packed. In fact, there was overflow. Moms were out in the hallway and they brought their strollers, their Cheerios, their babies, everything. And there was even a mom in the back that was nursing her baby with a blanket and everything. But I think that kind of unsettled some of the committee members. And so I'm sitting there and they're watching as all these moms are coming in. And one of the guys sitting beside the chairman reaches over to the chairman and says, "What's on the docket today?" And the chairman leaned over and says, "I don't know. All I got to say is whatever they want." Whatever they want. And you know what? We left with everything we wanted that day. Because those of us who got up and spoke respectfully as we addressed our concerns. And even the moms that didn't speak, they were there. They were there present and showed this is what we care about. And as each mom came in, there was a clipboard at the front where you wrote your name and for or against. So they could see 200 plus moms were against this bill that they were trying to pass. And then the next committee hearing, we were able to push through the bill that we wanted passed. And so now we don't have to have notarized paperwork when we fill out our annual report to homeschool. And I keep hearing the chairman's words echo in my mind. Whatever they want. Ladies, that's the power that we have. You can't mess with moms. And when we unite together as moms across the country, then we can stand up for those things that we know to be right and true and have the courage to do so and be able to do it respectfully in a way that we're heard and have a positive outcome. So let me run through those points again. First, educate and inform ourselves. Second, be heard, be assertive, go into the classroom, find out what your children are learning. Read their books. Check out the books in the library. It is your right to do so. Third, find out what your options are. Know what your rights are. And make decisions for your children's welfare and education based on what you feel is in the best interest of your children. Because you have a fundamental right to teach, nurture, and raise those children. And all those other resources out there are to support you, not replace you or dictate to you how you're going to do it. Finally, vote your values. Your vote is your voice for your values. Come to Moms for America. Get the resources you need through Mom Vote. We're redoing our whole entire Mom Vote page with all the great resources you'll need. We've partnered with iVoter to give you all the information on your own ballot simply by putting your zip code in. I mean, just great resources out there. Get registered, ladies, and have your voice heard. And we'll start turning this culture. The two places where our voice has the greatest influence and impact is in our home and through our vote. We teach these principles and values in our home. We need to secure them with our vote. And one final thing that you can do, get on your knees and ask for God's help because He is there. I know He is, and He will support you when you call upon Him because there's no one who knows and loves your children better than you do except God Himself. And when you're struggling and you need to know, what do I do for my children? What decisions do I need to make? Do it with Him, and He will not lead you astray. When Alexis de Tocqueville came to the United States in the 1800s to find out what was the greatness of America, he found it with the mothers of America. And because of what he saw, he knew the powerful influence of women. And he said righteous women in their sphere of influence, beginning in the home, can turn the world around. Please remember, there is nothing going outside our homes that can't be healed, countered, or curtailed inside our homes. What we create and nurture there will literally be the foundation for future generations. And as we unite together across the country as mothers, fathers, parents, family, we will be able to reclaim our culture for truth, family, freedom, the Constitution that protects our divine inherent rights as mothers. We will be able to raise a new generation of patriots and heal America from the inside out. And that is my wish and my prayer for you. Thank you for having me, and may God bless you and your home and your families. And may He, together through our concerted efforts, continue to bless America.
There is nothing in this world more precious than a child. We treasure the immeasurable value and undeserved gift of children. God calls on all of us to protect the minds of our children from those who regard them as commodities. Marxist indoctrination, sex trafficking, and the enticement of the pop culture industry are crimes being committed against our children even as we speak. And that's why we are here. Would you join us in an effort to rescue them? Text the word rescuing to 50155 to donate any amount. Thank you.